what's really interested me in recent years is how is it that we relate to men as being the agents of everything, being problems, but we don't actually relate to men as being sort of the victims of having problems? How is it that we talk about how men need to talk, but then actually if you try to talk about men's issues, people try and shut men down? Something I've been dealing with in the UK an awful lot in the past couple of weeks. We're putting male suicide on the political agenda. And the issues it's bringing up and the way it's showing how men are prevented from getting into the feminine realm, to have vulnerability, to have compassion given to them is extraordinary. The way that people are fighting against us having a conversation about male suicide. We'll say men should talk, but then when men step forward and say, I want to talk about this, we go, no, you can't talk about that. And I'm going to read just one little message I got in the past week off some. I get messages like this all the time. This is what gives me, when I've been out fighting, this is what sort of like touches my heart and actually realises in my gut that actually I'm doing the right thing for me. So I had a chap, just don't know who he was, he just got in touch with me the other day, and he said on many occasions I've been waiting for the Carlisle to Newcastle train, sitting on the train track, waiting for the train to put me out of misery. That's Carlisle to Newcastle, a pretty grim part of England. I've just been sitting on the track. And he said, but with the help of a supportive family and an amazing GP, I managed to pull through. He said, you don't know me, Glenn, but I just want to say how much I admire what you're doing, because I myself am a survivor, and my story isn't over, thankfully, and I will do whatever I can to help. I don't say that to big me up, I say that actually to assert how important it is for us to have the courage to have conversations about men, where they're vulnerable, men, where they have problems, and men, where they're victims. Now that is a segue into our next speaker. Our next speaker, Greg Andresen. I'm proud to call a friend. We've known each other, I don't know how long we've known each other now, Greg, but it's at least 3 years, I think, possibly 4 or 5. When you were working on Dads on the Air, wasn't it, probably? My first interview with Dads on the Air in 2010, so it's International Men's Day 2010. International Men's Day brought us together. Do you know, a politician today put down a motion in this country, can you hear me getting slightly angry here? Put down a motion in this country to say to the House of whatever the New South Wales executive is, that this House agrees that International Men's Day in its current format has no utility. How dare that person do that? How dare they say that this conversation has no utility when men like that are crying out for voices? When people like us get to connect through International Men's Day? How dare they? Well, they dare. They're entitled to. But really, that kind of conversation is extraordinary to me.
They wouldn't dare say that about Women's Day, would they?
No. Indeed. Thank you, sir.
Who was it? Can you remember the
I'll say later, I want to bring you back to the nice space. It was green. Nice. So nice and fluffy, that's where I wore the pink shirts.
I want to know.
Yeah, it was the, I don't want to queer Greg's pitch. So
pitchforks.
It was, pitchforks, whatever. Yeah. So, and that's been happening in the UK too, and we took it on in the UK. We took it on in the UK and we got our debate in Parliament. So, yeah, and we need to do that kind of thing here too. We need to assert the right of men to talk about their problems. And one person who's been doing that, not just in this country, but for the world, Greg Andresen. I know you're a fantastic father, and I've watched you talk about your kids and share about your kids, and I know you're just a great dad. You're a lovely, extraordinary dad. You're also a lovely man. I know I've worked with you over the last few years, and I know the level of commitment and passion that you bring to this conversation is extraordinary. Is extraordinary. The amount of hours that you put in voluntarily is extraordinary, and you make so much available for so many other men, and I've met so many great people through your stand with the work that you do. I've been connected to so many people because of you, and in part I'm here because of you, because it was the conversation on International Men's Day in 2010 which started my personal exploration in terms of this work into what's going on in Australia. So thank you for that. Yeah. So please welcome, to our forum from the 1 in 3 campaign, Mr. Greg Andresen.
And thanks for all of you who've turned up tonight. When I looked at the topic for this evening, I thought of approaching it in a sort of deep philosophical way. And I realised I'd need a lot more than 6 minutes to do that, and so I'm really glad that you painted that beautiful picture that you did to start us off tonight. I'm going to talk in quite a specific way about how this evening's topic applies to the work that the 1 in 3 campaign does in advocating for male victims of family violence. There's no doubt that male victims of family violence are in crisis. Recent qualitative Australian research shows that they experience much the same forms of violence and abuse as do female victims. However, they are much, much less likely to talk about it. According to the 2012 ABS Personal Safety Survey, only 46% of males who have experienced current partner violence have ever told anyone about it. So most of these men have not told a single soul. Only 30% have sought advice or support, and only 5% of them have contacted the police. So male victims are in crisis, they need help, but they're reluctant to talk about it. So why is it? Why are men reluctant to admit to what's happening to them? Research shows that both internal and external factors are involved. So many male victims face barriers to disclosing their abuse because of the challenges that such disclosure brings to their sense of manhood. So even in 2015, when we see almost as many new dads out and about pushing prams as we see new mums, men are still raised to believe that to be a good man, they must be strong, they must be tough, they must be able to protect and defend themselves, able to take it on the chin, able to sort out their own problems rather than ask for help. Because of this, they report experiencing a great deal of shame, embarrassment and social stigma in disclosing that they're being abused, especially if it's by a woman who's usually seen as the smaller, weaker, less powerful partner. They fear being laughed at or ridiculed or called weak or wimpy, and often with good reason. We get men all the time coming to us saying that the police have used that language when they do report violence. They experience disbelief and denial or make excuses for the violence. What did I do to make her? Now on the other side, on the external side, many barriers to male victims disclosing their abuse are created or amplified by the lack of public acknowledgement that men can also be victims of family violence, along with the lack of appropriate services for male victims and their children. Men often don't know where to seek help or how to seek help. They feel there's nowhere for them to escape to, that they won't be believed or understood, that their experiences will be minimised, that services will be unable to offer them appropriate support, or they may be blamed for the violence and falsely arrested simply because of their gender. And in that case, their children will be left with the abuser. So, male victims are in crisis, they need help, they're reluctant to disclose, but they need to start disclosing if they're going to get the help that they need. The pressures on these men that prevent them disclosing are all social pressures. The internal factors have come about because of the way society socialises our boys and young men. The external factors have come about because of the way our society has approached the issue of domestic and family violence historically through the singular lens of the experience of women, and has provided services largely for women only as a result of that. And these are services that have been desperately needed, of course. Since our inception, the 1 in 3 campaign has argued that a simultaneous two-pronged approach is required from governments and NGOs in order to address the needs of male victims of family violence. We need government-funded public awareness campaigns to raise awareness of the fact that family violence against men happens, and break down the stigma that prevents these men from disclosing such violence. These campaigns need to be carefully designed so as to complement campaigns about violence against women and not damage the effectiveness of those campaigns. At the same time, governments and NGOs need to provide at least a modicum of services on the ground to support male victims when they do summon up the courage to come forward. Some of these services may be able to be integrated with general and women's services. and others may need to be gender specific. Alone, these two strategies are almost guaranteed to fail, but together they will hopefully encourage more male victims to come forward and seek the help they need while providing some services to support them. The good news is that male victims appear to be coming forward in greater numbers than ever before. There was a 175% rise between 2005 and 2012 in the number of men reporting current partner violence since the age of 15 to the ABS. There's also some good news on the service provision front. Governments are starting to open up some women-only services to male victims, and there are now some small but very promising pilot programs for men in a number of locations. However, there's still a lot of work to do. The main challenge we face is the perception that advocating for male victims is somehow an attack upon female victims or an attack upon women in general. It's not. It never has been. We believe our society has the capacity to support all victims of family violence, whether young or old, male or female, gay or straight, rich or poor, wherever they live. Thank you.